In the heart of the 1950s, a quiet rumble began to shake the very foundations of America. It wasn't the sound of engines or industry, but the sound of footsteps. Footsteps of ordinary people, men and women, young and old, walking together down city streets. They carried simple signs, but their messages were profound: equality, freedom, justice. These weren't just words on cardboard. They were the deepest desires of a people long denied their basic human rights, marching under a warm, bright sky that seemed to whisper of a new dawn. This is the story of a generation that dared to dream of a better America, and their journey to turn that dream into reality. At the forefront of this rising chorus was a voice that resonated with power, grace, and an unshakable faith in nonviolence. From pulpits and podiums, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke not of anger, but of love. His words weren't just heard, they were felt. In the faces of the crowd, you could see a reflection of his vision, a nation where his children would one day be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. His voice, carried on the wind, became the soundtrack of a revolution, inspiring thousands to stand up by sitting down, to fight injustice with peaceful resolve, and to meet hatred with a courage that could not be broken. The battlegrounds of this new American Revolution were not fields of war, but everyday places. They were the long, sterile counters of segregated diners, where brave young students, immaculately dressed, staged sit-ins. They would simply sit and wait, enduring taunts, threats, and sometimes violence, all without raising a hand. Each moment of silent endurance was an act of defiance. Each refusal to leave was a declaration that they belonged, that this country was their country too. Their quiet dignity in the face of ugliness was a powerful testament, showing the world the stark contrast between the hateful prejudice of segregation and the peaceful demand for simple human decency. The struggle flowed like a river, and soon it would lead to bridges that were both physical and symbolic. In places like Selma, Alabama, marches for voting rights became pivotal moments. Imagine hundreds of people marching with a determined calm, crossing a bridge only to be met with brutal opposition. These were not riots. They were peaceful assemblies, acts of profound civil disobedience. The images from these marches, broadcast across the nation and the world, shocked the conscience of a generation. They revealed the high cost of freedom and the incredible bravery required to walk toward it, even when the path was blocked by hostility and hate. Each step taken on that pavement was a step toward a more just future. This was a movement of many faces and many voices. It was the resolute courage of Rosa Parks, whose simple refusal to give up her seat on a Montgomery bus sparked a city-wide boycott that lasted for over a year. It was the Freedom Riders, black and white activists who rode buses together into the Deep South, challenging illegal segregation laws at great personal risk. It was the thousands of volunteers who poured into Mississippi during Freedom Summer to register African American voters, facing down intimidation and violence. It was a tapestry woven from countless individual acts of courage, each thread strengthening the fabric of the entire movement, proving that change comes not from one leader, but from the collective will of the people. The sound of the movement was a constant hum beneath the surface of American life. It was the solemn cadence of marching feet, a steady rhythm of progress. It was the unified chorus of voices chanting, "We shall overcome," a hymn of hope that echoed in churches and on the streets. And above it all, it was the powerful oratory of leaders like Dr. King, whose speeches were not just words, but sermons that stirred the soul of the nation. These ambient sounds were the lifeblood of the struggle, a constant reminder that this was a human movement, fueled by passion, sustained by community, and aimed at the very heart of what America promised to be. The opposition was real and often terrifying. The nonviolent protesters were met with police dogs, high-pressure fire hoses, and angry mobs. Yet their commitment to nonviolence held firm. This strategy, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, was not a sign of weakness but of immense strength. It was a moral challenge to the oppressors, forcing them to confront the injustice of their own actions. By refusing to retaliate, the protesters occupied the moral high ground, their peacefulness exposing the brutality of the system they sought to change. It was a disciplined, strategic, and deeply spiritual approach to achieving social justice, and it proved to be one of the most powerful weapons in their arsenal. The culmination of this decade of struggle arrived on a sweltering August day in 1963. Over 250,000 people gathered for the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. It was a breathtaking display of unity and hope. Standing before the Lincoln Memorial, Dr. King delivered his immortal, "I Have a Dream" speech. It was a vision of an America healed from its racial wounds, a land where freedom and justice would ring from every mountainside. That speech, delivered under a sky bright with possibility, became an everlasting anthem for the civil rights movement and a beacon of hope for oppressed people everywhere. It was a promise of what America could be, and a challenge to every citizen to help build that future. The cinematic scenes of this era are etched into our collective memory, the determined faces in the marching crowds, the quiet dignity of the students at the lunch counters, the powerful presence of Dr. King at the podium. Each image tells a story of courage, sacrifice, and an unyielding belief in the promise of equality. The historically accurate clothing and settings ground these reenactments in reality, reminding us that these were real people in real places, fighting for rights we often take for granted today. The warm cinematic lighting that bathes these scenes is not just an artistic choice. It symbolizes the persistent hope that illuminated even the darkest hours of the struggle. The legacy of the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s is monumental. It led to landmark legislation like the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, laws that dismantled legal segregation and opened the doors of democracy. But its impact goes far beyond legislation. It changed hearts and minds. It taught America a profound lesson about justice, equality, and the power of nonviolent protest. The story of this movement is not just a chapter in a history book. It is a living testament to the idea that ordinary people, united in purpose and armed with courage, can indeed change the world. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you found this story as moving and important as we do, please like, share, and subscribe for more chapters from our shared past.